For those of you who are joining after the fact, this is a live session that we're doing with the great Dr. Una with Entree MD, and she is here. We're going to talk today about a common problem that I think comes across our desk. I know comes across her community as well when it comes to when is the right time to hire people. And so this is an important topic, I think, as you're struggling with figuring out if I do it now and what's that framework. And so Dr. Una, I'll let her introduce herself, but has a framework to think about this. So with that, Dr. Una, please introduce yourself. Tell us about Entree MD and maybe a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me and thank you for all you do for physicians everywhere. I talk to your clients all the time. They love you. Like you're their big break. Okay. Big break in business. So they love you. Love you. Love you. As Dr. Heather said, I'm Dr. Una. I am a pediatrician by training. I have been in private practice for the last 15 years. My practice has been team led for the last 6. And this phase of my career is really about helping doctors thrive as entrepreneurs, build profitable, 6, 7, multiple 7-figure businesses so they have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on their terms. So I do that through a company called Entree MD. And, we have the Entree MD podcast. We have a library of books that we've written. And then we have the Entree MD Business School. And so that is where we really get some pretty significant work done. So a number of you here are actually doctors in the Entree MD Business School alumni. So it's very cool to see you.
I'll give one plug though. I will say the Entree MD Business School was truly like the breakthrough for our own business. And I know we're not a traditional, obviously, clinical practice, but was truly, and I was actually speaking with another physician earlier today, and she said the same thing about she was an Entree MD alumni. And so huge fan of what you do for physicians and the group you bring together, because really building something, whether it's building it from scratch or starting somewhere in the middle and growing it, I think is the hardest thing I've ever done. So we appreciate you. So yeah, let's talk about you've built a successful practice. You've built another successful business. Both of those things require hiring somebody, which is not easy to know. And I struggle with this too sometimes. Is it time? Do I have enough clients? Do I have enough patients? So talk to us a little bit just about how you frame that in your own mind.
Yeah. So what I will do is I'll talk about this, especially as hiring a physician, since for many people, many of your clients, that will be the biggest quote unquote dent in their
Correct.
payroll.
Yes.
Right. And I'm going to give some overarching thoughts to start with. And the first one would be the sequence of your hiring can be the difference between, oh my goodness, hiring this person was the best thing I ever did. And this was the thing that created the greatest, like cash crunch, cash flow issues in my practice. And so as we approach it, we want to have a way of thinking about it. So we make sure we're falling into, oh my goodness, this was the best thing I ever did, because it could be. Okay. I've talked to, oh my goodness, I've talked to all kinds of physicians. So I'm going to paint 2 pictures. I've talked to a doctor who was running a private practice, $3 million in revenue, which you say, oh my goodness, that's amazing. Except she was also working locums to make payroll, because as her team grew, all of her expenses grew and her payroll grew, but she didn't know how to leverage her team to raise her revenue. And so she was working locum. So if you imagine that, I'm running a $3 million business and I'm working locum, right? That's one picture. The other picture is where somebody has brought another person on and they hired them and onboarded them and did all the things in such a way that, yes, the payroll went up significantly, but the revenue went up significantly. And once you're able to figure out how to do that, then you can hire all day, every day, and twice on Sunday, right? And it boils down to a math equation. I call it a math of hiring. Every role that you bring into your company needs to create 3 buckets of money. Okay. The first bucket of money is the revenue they generate to cover their salary. I tell my team members all the time, your salary does not come out of my okay, your salary comes out of what you generate, right? And so what they generate, what that role generates, needs to cover the salary of that role. It needs to cover the overhead associated with that role, and it needs to create a profit for the practice. And someone may say, well, it's not about the profit, except it is. If not, why are we doing what we do? We can work a job. We don't need to do this. And so this is a true win-win situation. The employee won, the practice won, the practice owner want, right? If you have a relationship where one person is winning and one person is not, it's called a parasitic relationship. So we don't want to build practices that are parasitic. Okay. So these are just some overarching thoughts. And so what I want to do is I want to paint a picture of this is a picture of when you're hiring too late, right? And I'll tell you what the consequences are. This is a picture when you're hiring too early, right? And so we're hiring somewhere in between this too late and too early, and then how to prepare to hire. Okay, so those are the three things that we're going to cover. It's going to be very simple. It's going to be something you're like, oh, okay, I got it. And I can start doing this right away. So you're more confident when you hire and then you avoid landmines. Okay. So the very first one is when you're should I bring on a physician? This is how you know if it's too late. No, and too late. So again, in the entrepreneurial world, we observe, we don't judge. Okay. This doesn't mean, oh man, I suck. So that's not what it means. It means, okay, put the ad out today. That's all that it means. We don't judge. Okay. But the thing about hiring too late, what is the opportunity cost? What is the consequence? The consequence is that the physician CEO is only seeing patients. The physician CEO cannot be the CEO. And so what happens is a slow but sure decline in the practice. So first of all, the owner gets burned out because this is usual in practices where, oh, but the patients need to be saying, stick them in where I would have lunch, stick them in where I have this. You only have 4 spots saying, yeah, magical spot, put them in here. Oh, so the doctor is burned out, right? And this doctor also happens to be the CEO. So guess what's not happening? There's no visionarian in the practice. There's no meeting with the biller to make sure the numbers look good. There's no meeting with the other docs to say how we doing on our metrics. None of those things are happening. So because those things are not happening, it's just slow but steady. It will look like everything is okay because it's busy. And with a good biller, there'll still be money in the bank, but the practice is dying. That's what's happening. So we don't want to be in that position where it's too late and we just let it be because it's practice death that follows that. Okay. So what are the signs that it is too late? Like you're overdue, like do this immediately. The first one would be the physician, especially the physician owners at capacity. Okay. So when you find out that, again, in order to take care of the volume of patients you need, you're skipping lunch, you're coming in earlier, you're staying later, not later to do other things, but you're making up later appointments. Like there's no 5 o'clock appointment, but you made up a 5 o'clock appointment. When you're doing that, again, opportunity cost is the CEO is not CEOing. And that is a problem. It is not an urgent problem, but it's an important problem, right? Okay, so especially the owner, but it's even the same thing with the other doctors who work. If everybody's at capacity, something needs to give. You see what I'm saying? Because then you have the narrative going out like, oh, you can never get an appointment there. Oh, they're not accepting new people. All that. And it takes a minute to reverse that, right? So except you're saying, we don't want any more, we're done. But if there's room for growth, then it's too late, right? So that's the first thing. The doctor's at capacity. The second thing is a spin-off. If a new patient calls and your next appointment is 4 weeks away, is 3 weeks away, right? Is 2 months away, then the question is, are we going to grow? Are we done? Are we converting to a boutique practice and we're not growing anymore? Or if that's what we're saying, that's okay. But if we're still going to grow, right? Then it's too late. We need to,
And I think
right?
that's an important part, though, like that whole process of what do I want my practice to look like? Like we have some practices that we work with that are very happy, single, maybe they've got, a mid-level, small practice. And then we've got practices that have 25, 30 physician, as part of their team. And they have multiple sites and they're opening multiple sites. And so I think having that moment of honesty and clarity of, I want this. And that could change, right? Today, that may be something you've got little kids at home. And when the kids are off to college, that may look different, but I think having that moment to go, okay, what do I see? And then let me solve the problem based on the vision I have. But you, again, have to have the moment and clarity to have those conversations with yourself.
Exactly. You need that. And even with that, even when I find people who are like, I don't want to grow, I don't want to have a big, for instance, I don't have a ginormous practice. I have 3 docs that work with me. I don't have multiple locations or anything. And it's not because I couldn't. Like clearly, I'm business savvy enough to do that, but that's not what I want. But even with that, if you find it's a month out and all of those things, sometimes people in the beginning, because they don't want to deal with what is required to grow the practice, they're like, I don't want to grow it, but it's not actually true. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there are other ways of bringing on another doc. Another doc could look like some doc that wants to work 2 days a week. It takes off that pressure. It takes off that backlog. It lets you get more people. It gives you bandwidth to think, but you're not, like fundamentally changing your practice. Do you see what I mean? Like there are ways of doing it so that way, if your volume dips, it dips to just you, as opposed to now you can't even support you. You know what I mean? Totally. So there's so many ways of doing it. And people may say, well, what if I can't find somebody who wants to work 2 days a week? To which I say, there has never been the level of flexibility in the physician community as there is now. There has never been. So if you want someone to work 1 day a week, I promise you that person exists. 2, 3, 4, whatever you want. It's a buffet. It exists. Okay. So that's the second thing. You have these really long wait times. And thank you, Dr. Signorelli, for pointing that out, because, that's true. Then the third thing, it's an add-on, right? Which is if you have patient acquisition systems that are consistent and controllable. And I'll explain what I mean by that, because sometimes people are like, I'm busy. I'm going to bring in somebody else. But they don't actually have the engine to get that person busy. Right. So that's a problem. But if you have that system in place where you can say, we're going to keep growing. So for instance, we have a doc. She was in the EntreMD business school and she started working on building a referral base. Okay. And she had this one orthopedic practice that could refer to her. That initially she thought was 19 providers. It turned out there were 42. 42. And they said, we will send you everybody. So she was getting 5 to 7 referrals a day. Okay.
Hopefully she's got a big office.
Right. And so if she says, I'm bringing on somebody else, that system is already in place. So imagine everybody's schedule is full. It's a 1 month wait time. And she has 5 new referrals a day. Again, you get to pick. Do I want to grow? Do I not want to grow? But if you do want to grow, then now's the time, because you have the results are consistent and controllable. You see what I'm saying?
And I think understanding, to your point here, what makes your engine turn, right? From a lead perspective.
Yes.
Speaking about patients in this scenario, but what turns that on? And so if you know, okay, I do X, Y, and Z, I go visit these referral partners, make my phone calls once a week to the offices and remind them who I am, like whatever that path is, if you know that results in additional leads, then you know the engine to help get you patients to then get a schedule full.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of times then we hire and we don't know how we're going to get the schedule full. That becomes a whole other problem. So we'll talk about it too early.
And I think that's where folks that have come to us saying like, I'm burnt out, but they have an inconsistent flow of leads, or they don't know what creates that leads. It's all just been by luck or by, I'm just hoping the patients will come, but they don't know what turns on that lever or off that lever. And so then they hire and then they've got additional payroll. And then they're like, oh no, the leads or the patient stopped and now I'm stressed. And so I think to your point here, it's calling out, okay, this is my lever to turn on patients. I'm going to turn it on full blast because I have these new appointments that are available.
Exactly. That's the way it works. And it gives you a level of confidence, right? Like I can feel this, as opposed to let's see what happens. Like let's see what happens is not quite a strategy in business. It leads to pain and suffering, right? So yeah. Okay. So that's too late. Okay. So if you're in this point, like may the force be with you, you can hire. Okay. Let's put out ads. Let's get all these things going on. Now, when could it be too early? Okay. And too early, what is a consequence? Big time cash flow problems, like big time. Okay. Because you're talking big payroll, and all of that stuff. So if you're going to have a big payroll, you want to at least look to make sure I can get an ROI, because your payroll could be an expense or an investment. Okay. So if it's not generating revenue, then it's an expense. If I put in this number of dollars, I get this out. And of course, his patients first, but we're having a business conversation, right? So if I know that, then I'm good. Like it's not, it's an investment, it's not an expense. So the consequence is cash flow problem, and it's real, and it robs people of sleep, and it's a stressor. It burns people out. So I want us to pay attention to three signs that is too early. Now, I was going to say the doctor's schedule is not the current team, the doctor's schedule is not at capacity, but I actually changed that to say that there's no cash flow to support the new doctor. And what I mean by that, it could either be that the doctors that are already there, their schedules are not full. And it would seem weird that I have to say this, but I've seen many, many times doctor schedules are not full. The doctor decides I'm busy and I'm tired, and they hire a whole other full-time physician. And then it's pain and suffering after that, right? So if you don't have the cash flow, you want to pause, because once you hire that person, you will need the cash flow, right? So there's no emergency here. So it's either the doctors who are already there, their schedule is not full, or their schedules are full, but the billing is not being done. So you're not getting paid for the full schedule. Okay. Dr. Signorelli, I see you going like, right? And so there are people who are like, oh my goodness, I'm seeing 25 patients a day. I'm so tired. I'm so stressed. But the cash flow is not working because the billing is not happening. So
Right.
even though they're full and they think that justifies a new hire, it's still going to be a problem, because when that new hire comes on, what you've done is you've multiplied chaos.
The
Right.
number two things to look at in that scenario is your accounts receivable, your denials, and obviously, accounts receivable kind of gets into that insurance versus patient. Like, are your people paying you? Patient insurance, et cetera. So just wanted to send that plug in, but agree.
And this other plug-in that if you're not working with Dr. Signorelli, you have the issue. Like, okay.
Thank you. I love it. I love it.
Oh, because not that you're, and there's does not mean things are. I am going to. Okay, so that the second thing, we've kind of played around with it, which is your patient acquisition system results are not consistent. Okay, so either you don't really engineer it, like you're accept whatever comes your way. Oh, people called us, we made appointments, and that's it. But you don't know how to engineer volume, right? So if you don't know how to engineer volume, it might be too early. And I'll show you what to do right now. So, but you have to know how to do that. Oh, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks from now, our schedule looks empty. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the schedule will be full. You have to know what that is. Okay. And then the third thing is the pathway to profit has not been designed. Okay. Because again, when you're bringing in a new doctor, you need to know this is the number of patients they need to see to break even. This is the number of patients they need to see. Like, these numbers have to be clear in your mind, so that when the person comes in, you know what to work towards. For instance, if someone's break even is 16 patients, and I'm totally making this up, and they tell you, I really believe patients need quality care, and I only want to see 2 patients per hour. They have already told you they're not your doctor. Like, this interview needs to end immediately because that's not the way this works, right? If we're a concierge and we charge whatever we want, okay. But if an insurance model, no, this is a volume game. But if you don't know, you'll be tempted to say, but the doctor is really nice and he knows like what he's doing and all that stuff. I want to hire him. If you know the numbers, you're like, no way. Like, I can recommend somebody who you'll be a good fit for, and that's it.
And so math has to make sense. Like,
the math has to match. It must
math.
It must math.
Yes.
So we have to know those numbers, right? And it could be, quick and dirty numbers, but you have to know the numbers. And so when they come in and they're seeing under and they're excited, you're like, no, we need to have a meet. This is the way this works. Like, you don't accept it. Okay. So those are 3 signs that it might be too early, but they're all fixable. Okay. All right. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'm going to flip this and I'm going to talk about how to prepare. What do I need to do so I'm ready to hire? I'm ready to hire profitably, which means when this person comes on, they're going to cover their salary, cover their overhead, and create a profit for the practice. Win, win, win. Everybody needs to be winning in this equation. Okay. So number 1 is to build your your patient acquisition system for consistent results. So and it depends on your practice. There are many ways. It's like a buffet, but you'll see what works for you. Dr. Heather, I had the shocker of my life yesterday. I had a meeting with my practice administrator. We've always been referral was our number 1 way of acquiring patients. For the first time ever, it was internet, like Google and all of those
like
things.
Ads or just
like itty bitty ads. It's not, but it's just like Google profile reviews. That's what they saw, all those kind of things. And then friends and family referrals. And then office referrals was number 3. I could not believe it. But see, you have to know what it is, because guess what we're doing now? We're like, these two are one and two. We're going to go optimize those. We're going to go get more reviews. We're going to go beef up our Google business profile. We're going to, put more testimonial, video testimonials, all of that. Facilitate family and friends referring, and then go back to say, maybe there's an opportunity here with our physician referrals. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you have to know. You have to know what works and build something that generates appointments. For instance, you may have hit a recaller. Like, let's call everyone who's overdue for appointments. And you notice every time we do this, we get 20, 30 new appointments. Then you know what to do. So, if I do these 5 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my schedule will be full. You have to know what that is.
And it's not hard, right? Like you just have to create the list of things, here are the 5 things that I know help get us patients. Maybe it's ads, maybe it's referrals, maybe it's, whatever. Just create that list. Obviously having some way to measure that. And I'm a big spreadsheet, big, got to measure,
I know.
in order to monitor. But so I think though, this is where, having somebody who can help you with this or having the time and the bandwidth as the CEO physician is really key. And so, because it's hard to do all the things, but you have to have time to do these things in order. It's like, you got to have time to monitor the billing. You got to have time to monitor when the patients are coming in, because it allows you to be the visionary to say, okay, what is my strategy for the next 12 months?
Yeah. And this is also why it's really important. Like, hiring is very important because as a CEO, you need CEO time. It can, like, you can tag it on in the beginning, but you need CEO time. Like, thinking is some of the most powerful work you would do, most profitable work you would do for your practice. Right. And Dr. Heather, you're talking of a simple way to do it. The way we've done it is on our intake form. We have how did you hear from us there? So every 90 days we can go back and then track it and say, what were the highest things and stuff like that and pay attention to that.
Easy
right?
peasy.
Easy peasy. So again, you just build, like, I have these 5 things that I do, right? And a lot of times it's not one thing, it's a combination of things. But when I do this, my schedule is full, right? So that's the first thing you do to prepare. The second thing is to put your practice in the strongest financial situation. Because if it's already financially strained, bringing on a big payroll is only going to push it further. So take a look. Are my doctors billing? Are they coding appropriately? Are they coding all night? That's going to hurt you. That means you're leaving so much money, unbelievable amount of money on the table. My billing, is that getting done? Am I having a ton of denials? What does my AR look like? Like, you have to know what those things are. If you're able to put away money, emergency fund, so you don't have to choose between fixing the HVAC and paying your people, right? You want to put those things away. Now, of course, there are ideal situations. You may not be able to get to ideal of ideal, but the strongest possible financial situation you could put your practice in so that it can handle what comes with the new payroll. Right. So that's the second thing. Put it in the strongest financial situation. And I know that it may sound, Dr. Heather, I want to do a math thing real quick, right? So the difference between a 99213 and 99214, for instance, on average will be about $35. $35. And if you have, I've seen docs do 93% 99213s. I'm like, your patients must be from Mars because there's no universe where this is possible, right? Okay. If you think about it, if this is only happening 6 times a day, where you're billing a 3 instead of a 4, which, if you're seeing 25 patients, that's not a lot of people. Right. That's $210 per day. If you have 260 working days, that's $54,600 per doctor. And not for extra work that needs to be done.
That's payable. We're not talking charges, guys. We're not talking like the funny money. We're talking actual
the real
net
money,
receipts.
Green money that goes straight to the bottom line.
Or if they're not collecting, the biggest thing we see, 2 areas: eligibility. They're not checking eligibility. So if a patient's not eligible or, struggling to get paid on the back end. So just doing eligibility checks and collecting dollars up front for what patient's responsibility is. Man, those 2 alone could bring you in $30,000-$40,000 a year or more, depending on how big you are. So, I hate seeing practices with 6 figures plus of patient AR. It is the number one thing we work with our practices on, because it can kill a practice. It really can.
It has killed many practices.
Yes.
So to that, I will say, don't get me started.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Check.
But the strong, and because sometimes the things you're talking about, the copay, the deductible, collecting those upfront, the insurance, like the front desk will say, we were too busy, we couldn't check eligibility. I'm like, then checking in the patient was useless. Scheduling them, like all the things you did after that, they were all useless. Like, but okay. Dr. Anna, hold it together.
Yeah.
Okay. But put your practice in the strongest financial, right? Situation. And then the third thing is define the pathway to profit for the physician. Business is an economic sport. And so you may hire because, this doctor has good bedside manner. I think I'll like working with them and all of those things. And the numbers add up, the maths. Like those two things need to be true. And so again, this is how much, about how much I would pay this person. This is how much we get reimbursed per patient visit. This is how many they would need to see a day. This is what I would pay them. So this is the number of patients it would take to break even each day. Like all of these things you have to understand. Of course, it will help you with your negotiations. It will help you with what you can actually afford to give as like as salary, what can be production, all of those things. But then also, that you're not setting your practice up to fail by hiring this person, because people have said, well, this is a really good doctor and they have X number of experience, so they deserve this amount. I'm like, okay, but the math doesn't math. Like it just doesn't math.
You have to, and I know not everybody loves to sit down with those numbers and get the Excel spreadsheet out, but you have to have somebody. If it's not you, you have to find somebody who can help you with that, because this is the number one thing that I think, folks get confused on, what their net receipts are per patient and or per claim. And if you don't need to get down to necessarily what you get paid on every single CPT, just high level is good for most things, but not having that conversation with yourself or your office manager or your business partner is soul crushing when things go wrong. And this is not a hard thing. The math isn't, we're talking 4 or 5 different equations here. I mean, it's not rocket science, but it does need to happen.
Yeah. And I will say, like Dr. Signorelli, she loves spreadsheets. Okay. I do not want anything to do with a spreadsheet. Okay. So the reason why I'm saying that is I'm saying, even if you feel like I don't love spreadsheets, you can still learn enough to be dangerous with these things and still make calculated decisions. Or you partner with someone like Dr. Signorelli who loves spreadsheets, right? But I'm just saying it to normalize it, right? Like you may not love it, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. And you're in a community like this, and Dr. Signorelli, she's an amazing, amazing resource. So this is what I want to leave us with. First of all, you may have identified as a physician who's not really good at these things, but I want to invite you to look at yourself as a physician who can become great at these things. Okay. Because the things that you do as a great clinician, you didn't know them before you learn them, and you can learn these too. And as a physician CEO, someone who owns a private practice, you are a physician and an entrepreneur. You are both. And I want you to understand that you can excel at both. You need to learn some things, but you can absolutely excel at both. And the other thing is, these 3 things, like if you would understand how to build patient acquisition systems, how to put your practice in a strong financial position and define that path of profit for your doctor, you'll be able to hire confidently and you'll be able to lead them properly, right? You understand how to hold them, give them the gift of accountability and know what numbers to check with them. And when they want to have evaluations and reviews, you know what to look like, and you'll put your business in the best possible state. If you're here and you're like, oh man, I've made all these mistakes, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, it's not a problem. We have the gift of awareness now. And so we can retrace our footsteps and we can start making corrections. In another 30, 60 days, we'll be in a completely different spot. So if you found something that looks like a problem, it's not a problem, it's a project. And we just work the project and make it better. So
I love it. I love it. Well, and we'll add to the show notes your website and all the things. But one of the things that I think for us, and again, we had a different business, but the process around solutions was the same when we were in Entree MD business school, was really around setting the vision, figuring out what things you need to plug in, and then coming up with the plan. And I think that whole process applied to this scenario is truly like the secret sauce to making sure that the practice does well. And so I'm going to give the shameless plug for Entree MD Business School, because it truly helped get us from point A to point B to really, where we are now today. So, because if I remember correctly, like those are the workshops and the real work that was done in order to get folks from where they're struggling to where they're succeeding.
Because in the business school, What we really focus on, it's four things. The first thing is helping doctors make that transition from physician to physician entrepreneur. It's a completely different way of thinking, right? Whether that's how you manage your time, how you set goals, how you visioneer, all of those things. And then the second thing is how to build a dominant brand. Like, how do you become a magnet? And we're not talking just photo shoots and all that. That's not what we're talking. Like, how do you become the number one brand? How do you become sought after? How do you create these long wait lists, and all of those things? The third thing is how to create revenue. Like, I mean, business is
Shocking.
helping people in a profitable way. How do
Yeah.
I create revenue? How do I engineer revenue? How do I take my business to seven figures, multiple seven figures, all of that? How do I do that? And then the fourth thing is how to build a profitable team, which we alluded to quite a bit here. Like, how do I build a team? But when I'm bringing people on, it helps me serve more people and create more time freedom and more financial freedom. Not like the doctor I talked about who was doing 3 million in revenue and then doing locums, right? Like, so these are the things we focus on. And the end result is you have a practice you love and you have a life you love because you bought your time back, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we do. So yeah, if
Love it.
if it's something you're like, this is what I'm working on, come talk to us.
Right, we'll leave those in the show notes. And thank you so much for being here. Marissa, I know you can't speak to us, but thanks for being here. And all right, guys, we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, guys.